Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
GM, everybody, welcome to Good for Bitcoin. It's a weekly show we do live every Friday at 2 p.m. here on X, where we recap events of the week, talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines and Leather. We also have Longstreet, who is commandeering the Leather handle. Longstreet, happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday, Brandon.
Great week. Tons of news to talk about this week. I think we should probably dive right into it. I think a good place to start would be a little recap for maybe those that didn't tune into the space yesterday on Leather Lounge. Had a really great space with the folks from Counterfeit Cult. And that was a really enjoyable show yesterday.
Thanks for listening in, man. Yeah, it was a solid 90 minutes. We covered a lot of ground. So yesterday's show is definitely worth a listen, but we invited everyone from Counterfeit Culture. So this is a Bitcoin art collective that was really focusing on ordinals, and they pivoted super fast last February. They had a very early inscription, number 39,000, let's see, what was it, 38,980, with an inscription by Boozy, who was then under the pseudonym Hoodie Black. So we got to talk with with Boozy a little bit about like the pseudonym. Boozy, if you don't know, Boozy.btc is the artist behind Pizza Ninjas. He's been like just top tier creator, artist in stacks, and pivoting quickly to ordinals. So yeah, we talked about the last year and a half in ordinal space in general, what it's been like to like build an art house on Bitcoin and their process onboarding new artists, the learning curves, setting up nodes, what it was like to be kind of like grinding and pushing so hard, things that they've learned over the last year and a half. They were a little elusive about what their like new direction is going to be, what their pivot is going to be. But there is so much solid art. And after the show, I was looking at my collection of counterfeit cards. So they started with season 0. And anyone who, much like a lot of art communities, if you hold a certain NFT, it gets you like top tier access, first access, discounted prices. And I was so early with the group that I got that like early holder card. It's if you hold what's called an artifact, which is a piece by Boozy, you're in that top tier, so you get like access to the drops. So I was very fortunate that I collected just tons of great art, because not only were they just helping onboard new users, new artists, and new collectors, but they were curating really special pieces. So I was just last night looking back at a lot of the pieces from season 0 and realizing like that's a great collection, but the floor price is incredibly low. So if anyone is listening, if you've dipped your toes in the waters of collecting ordinals and art on Bitcoin, or maybe not, or maybe you want more, check out the show. Head over to the various art and inscription art houses, including Gamma, including Magic Eden, and you can start scooping up some great art. So it was a fantastic conversation. What were some of the highlights for you?
Yeah, I just think it's so cool to always hear about these examples of artists that were on stacks that very quickly pivoted to ordinals and found a ton of success there. There's so many examples of that in the space.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, that culture already existed on Bitcoin before ordinals was around, right? And ordinals became a thing, and it allowed us to do things on the L1 that we couldn't previously do. And so many artists were able to very quickly move over to ordinals. And the tooling at that time, right? In the first few weeks of ordinals being around, the tooling was so difficult. We didn't have wallets like Leather yet, that supported ordinals natively, and you had to use apps like Sparrow and Albi. I think was another one that people tried to use
Yeah.
with ordinals, and um, it's pretty incredible how quickly the Stacks ecosystem adopted ordinals, and it's been I feel like everybody that's part of that counterculture movement, counterfeit culture, excuse me, movement, um, has found just a ton of success. Right, a lot of people now know Boozy not from counterfeit culture, but from being like the artist for Pizza Ninjas and a lot of other works that he's made. And there's many other examples of things that um, that entire collective has created on ordinals now. But because of the nature of blockchain, right, you can go back and you can see all the really cool things that they've done. So you mentioned the cards. They have that. They've also, now been helping out with other artists that are not directly part of the counterfeit culture, but are also, building some really cool things. They mentioned, or I think you maybe had brought it up, Post Wook, and her series of works that she released recently, and they helped with some of the infrastructure with that to mint them and inscribe them on special significant sats. And yeah, there's so many different things to talk about there, but it was a really great show.
Yeah, that was another highlight, was talking about rare sats, special sats, what makes them special. They were talking a lot about black sats, how they realize that means a lot to them. They think that's really special. A black sat is the last one per block. So we know that there's a limited number of black sats, just like there are a limited number of the first block, the first sat of every block.
Mhm.
Uh, and to the point about like so many people from Stacks pivoting so quickly, it kind of feels like growing up in a small town and then everyone like graduating high school, moving away, and then realizing like, oh man, everyone's crushing it. Like they've all graduated, right?
That's totally yeah, that's a great comparison. That's definitely how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was no need to like rehash everything, but talking about the rare sats, checking in with many of the artists. Um, yeah, it was a great show yesterday. So definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, 90 minutes well spent for anybody that wants to go back and listen. Highly recommended. But yeah, let's get into some of the news this week because there was a lot. Uh, and yeah, some things that we've been talking about kind of for a while that have been happening. But we saw. I mean, yeah, let's just get into it. So first thing, I kind of combine these two into one story. We saw both Goldman Sachs and the State of Wisconsin Investment Board um, are buying Bitcoin. So they had, we've talked about with the ETFs, people buying Bitcoin, these large institutions getting, familiar and acclimated with Bitcoin. Sometimes it takes a while, right? They have boards, they have all these, just a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of things. So we're starting to see now kind of the fruits of of all that labor of the ETFs getting here and institutions coming on board. So Goldman Sachs, who previously, like many institutions in the space, was kind of known for their skepticism towards crypto and for Bitcoin, has reportedly invested over $400 million in various Bitcoin ETFs as of their kind of latest quarterly filing. A significant portion of that is through BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust. And yeah, it's just, again, another sign that institutions are getting more and more on board with Bitcoin. The bank CEO, who is David Solomon, has hinted at a strategic pivot towards Bitcoin, even suggesting that Goldman might be preparing for a broader role in cryptocurrency custody and trading. So, pretty
Mm.
exciting stuff there.
Yeah, truly. I'm thinking about how this is par for the course. More news. We're going to be hearing more news like this, and all these companies. they're not going to announce that they're going to be buying Bitcoin. They're going to announce it after it's already done. So and I think I really like Checkmatey and a lot of the other on-chain analysts because they like the masters of the chain, like they know how to read it. And a lot of them speculate like when we see things like this, it's probably major institutions purchasing, and then they say like expect to hear about it later. Like you can see it on chain, but they don't announce it until it's already happened.
Yeah, it's game theory, right? You wouldn't announce it that you're going to do it
Mhm.
because that is going to potentially drive the price up before you can buy it. So you don't really want to announce that you're buying, but yeah, exactly. You want to announce afterwards. And yeah, we also saw, as I mentioned at the top, the state of Wisconsin Investment Board has also announced their investment in Bitcoin ETFs, particularly in BlackRock and also Grayscale's offerings. And that marks one of the first state pension funds to get into cryptocurrencies as well. So, yeah, more and more institutions and big, big funds are getting on board with Bitcoin, and it, I don't know, like right now, just because it's, I guess, newer, more people are getting on board with it. It seems significant, but it kind of just seems like over time, this type of news will get less and less significant, and it'll just be kind of an accepted part of a portfolio, right? It'll just be just like you would buy S&P 500. You put a little bit in S&P 500, you put a little bit in Bitcoin, and little percentages here, little percentages there, and it's just going to be, I think, just more normalized as we continue on into the future.
Yeah, truly. And I think every single show that we've done, you've had some sort of announcement of some group, pension, country allocating money to Bitcoin through ETFs. Can you can I put you on the spot? Can you remember some of the others that we've mentioned in previous shows?
Oh no, I have to scroll back into past show notes to
I think
see some of those. But yeah, I mean have definitely been a lot. Well, we've talked
I,
about some of the publicly traded companies. There was like Semler
mhm,
Scientific. I remember
right,
was one of the bigger ones recently.
yeah.
Um,
And Santa Monica too, the firefighters pension. Is that right?
yes, yeah. Well. So they did it, but then Santa Monica themselves also introduced kind of their Bitcoin office and are doing some more Bitcoin education there. There was like the Santa Monica Pier Ferris wheel had was lit up as a big Bitcoin on the day that they announced it, which was a pretty cool photo.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then just a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Morgan Stanley wealth advisors are going to start, pitching clients to Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin ETFs. So rather than waiting for clients to ask about buying them, they can now sort of more actively sell these Bitcoin ETFs to their clients. And
Yeah.
yeah, that is another very positive update. Another thing that's good for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Okay, maybe you know this. So, isn't it past a certain threshold? Like, you have to be considered accredited, or you have to have like at least $1 million. Um, can they advise to anyone, or is there some limit? I think I remember hearing something about it's really not across the board available to anyone. You have to have some status.
Yeah, I do recall that as well. I don't know off the top of my head what the sort of tiers are, but there are these sort of stages. Again, going back to the bureaucracy of when the ETFs launched, we didn't immediately see a ton of institutional investors coming in and immediately buying on day one. Right now, looking back at the data, it was actually a lot of retail that was doing that, and the reason for that was because it wasn't immediately available, for everybody. Like not every institution was ready on day one to make these purchases, right? These things all take time. And part of that is because of, large boards that need convincing to make these large kind of financial decisions. But another part of that is yeah, maybe they're not even kind of paying attention, and these large investment funds that typically would advise their clients to make these types of purchases couldn't actually make these suggestions. So now we're starting to finally now see those suggestions happen, and now hopefully that is going to result in more players coming in and actually making allocations to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge unlock. All right, next question. Is CBBTC good for Bitcoin? And what is it?
Yeah, so this was probably the biggest news, I think, more mainstream wise, of the week, which was Coinbase just basically tweeted out just a one word or just a couple few characters, CBBTC. Which there was a little bit of speculation. They kind of just tweeted this out without any context, and people were questioning
Mhm.
what this actually was. And over time, a little bit more news started to come out. So what this actually looks like is it's essentially a wrapped version of Bitcoin that's going to live on Base, which is Coinbase's L2 that's on Ethereum. And it appears to, be kind of their version of a wrapped Bitcoin token. And, this move comes in the wake of controversy. I'm not sure if we actually talked about it on the show, but happened a week or two ago with wrapped Bitcoin, WBTC, that is also on Ethereum. It kind of had some BitGo came out to sort of announce some changes that happened with their with the way that it was custodied. And WBTC is a fairly centralized product for the most part. So CBBTC also, CB stands for Coinbase, right? So that is also
Mhm.
going to be kind of a centralized product as well. But it's expected to sort of function similarly to, I guess they already have sort of an ETH derivative, like a CB ETH on Base. And it's kind of just part of a broader strategy of the industry to, be building on Bitcoin, right? So it even though it is not necessarily on the Bitcoin network, it's not on a Bitcoin layer. So any fees that are being collected as part of CBBTC are not going to be really going back to Bitcoin there. But it is still good for Bitcoin because at the end of the day, like it's still a derivative of Bitcoin. We're still going to see bridges, get built to bridge, from one network to the other. There's going to be more infrastructure at play. So it is at the end of the day good for Bitcoin. And there's been different interviews that have come out. Our COO Rena was actually quoted in a Cointelegraph article. I can see that you already pinned it to the nest here on the top of the space, but she, in part of her quotes, she was talking about the opportunity for CBBTC is kind of based solely on current Coinbase users and kind of users of Base, and it's a massive onboarding opportunity for Bitcoin DeFi. Right, so people might get exposure to Bitcoin first through CBBTC and then realize that they can get maybe native Bitcoin, and then that might onboard them to native Bitcoin as well. And she kind of continued saying like the value proposition that's made by these EVM wrappers isn't compelling enough for Bitcoin native audiences, which I would agree with. I'm not going to go buy a bunch of CBBTC because I
Hmm.
have Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
But it's for those that are getting again onboarding through CBBTC, getting more acclimated into the ecosystem, that might then prompt them to maybe buy native Bitcoin and start using more Bitcoin native solutions. And when they are ready to do that, we'll be here for them, right? Through services like Leather that support Bitcoin natively.
Yeah. I imagine that for anyone who maybe wants to buy Bitcoin on the app and then they see like, okay, there's quite a substantial fee. CBBTC, someone might be looking at the option to hold Coinbase wrapped Bitcoin and have basically like no fee on that. And that's fine with them. It's going to stay in their Coinbase wallet. And I imagine for a lot of users, like that's going to be okay with them, right? Like the ETFs are custodied by someone else. CBBTC is going to be custodied by someone else. And for a lot of people, they're probably going to trust that centralized, like as anti Bitcoin ethos as that is, it's probably realistically going to be fine for most people. I mean, asterisk until it isn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my hotter takes is that most people don't actually care too much about decentralization.
Yeah.
They just want it to work, right? They don't want to pay a bunch of fees, and they just want to have a working product. But one thing to kind of also look forward to, especially in kind of response to CBBTC, is SBTC on Stacks. That is something that's been kind of building for quite some time now, and with Nakamoto, coming at the end of this month into September, we'll see SBTC also launch about maybe four-ish weeks after Nakamoto goes live. And SBTC is kind of the response to, can we do sort of a Bitcoin derivative, or kind of can we bridge Bitcoin onto from the L1 onto the L2 onto Stacks in as decentralized of a way as possible.
Mm.
It's kind of the best way that you can do it today without introducing new forms of like opcodes or BitVM, which we'll talk about as well kind of later on in the show. So it's kind of the best way to do it in a more kind of trust minimized, decentralized way without relying on sort of a third party service to do that bridging for you. Because you have with SBTC, you have sort of a decentralized group of signers that can come in and come out, and it's not a federation, it's not locked up. So it's just a more decentralized way of doing it. So definitely something to look forward to there.
Yeah, I just pinned a tweet from Munib because he had some really good thoughts on CBBTC versus SBTC and the different use cases for each one. It's a little long, so I'll just pin it there for anyone who wants to see it. But yeah, there is a big difference. And I want to follow up with you. We touched on this yesterday. So Stacks network is about to see a huge upgrade, and that is the Nakamoto Stacks 3.0. And the way people tweet about it, it's as if like there's 12 days left before it happens. It's as if like in 12 days, the chain is going to change completely and we're going to see like 5-second blocks. But that's not necessarily the case, right? What's the rollout, to your knowledge, of what the SBTC, of what Nakamoto version of the Stacks network will be like to use?
Yeah. So I think it was the 28th, right? Is that's the official sort of day that it's sort of scheduled to get delivered to the public.
Mhm.
Of course, Stacks is a decentralized network, so it's not like one person can just come in and flip on a switch and then immediately Nakamoto is live.
Right.
Stacks Nakamoto, it is a hard fork. So because it's a hard fork, it requires a little bit of time for all node operators and signers and everybody to upgrade right to the new version of the software that is running the Stacks network. So there's a couple weeks there where that process is going to happen. So on the on the 28th of this month, we won't be having fast blocks. It's going to take a couple more weeks for everybody to download the code, to get it up and running on their systems, to get it synchronized with the network, and then also basically settle on a specific Bitcoin block where that activation will actually happen.
Mhm.
So that'll take a couple weeks, and also it is 2 weeks because that is typically how long a stacking cycle lasts on Stacks on the network.
Mhm.
So you can't make this change in the middle of a stacking cycle because it'll just break too many things. So it needs to happen kind of at the start or at the end of a new stacking cycle. So that's why it's going to take a couple weeks to essentially roll out. But once that happens, once that block is decided on, that's it. As soon as that block hits, then Stacks Nakamoto will go live, fast blocks will go live, and they want to wait at least a couple stacking cycles in order to also release SBTC and have that go live, just to make sure that the network is stable and we don't want to introduce too many new things at once, right? That could potentially break things. So again, they just want to be cautious and roll things out smoothly to ensure that there's no issues. So we'll see SBTC go live a couple stacking cycles after Nakamoto goes live, which is about 4 weeks.
Okay, very well explained, Brandon. I put you on the spot there. That was you articulated that really clearly. Nice.
Well, I think I had to write a tweet about that, so that's how I
Yeah.
I kind of have it in my memory now on how that rollout is going to work. But I'm very excited about it. I know everybody on this call, I'm sure, is very excited about it. It's been something that has been in the works for actual years now. This upgrade, I would probably argue that it's the largest upgrade to a Bitcoin L2 ever. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, the upgrade is just, it's so significant that it's just going to completely change how the Stacks network operates, both in its security. Right? It's not just fast blocks. It's also security. It's, the fact that Stacks network will be settling back to the Bitcoin L1, and you won't be able to modify the Stacks blockchain once it's settled back to Bitcoin without also modifying the Bitcoin blockchain, which is nearly impossible. So the security that is also going to come from this upgrade is a huge deal. And of course, fast blocks are going to be amazing. The ability to execute different DeFi applications and have those settle within 5 seconds versus I think, was it you that the other day that tweeted about the fact that we had, I think, about an hour between Stacks blocks the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do DeFi with hour long blocks. It's just, it doesn't
Right.
work.
Yeah, I mean that an hour could be the difference between Bitcoin at 60,000 or 69,000 or 60,000 like we saw last week. It's crazy.
Yeah, so that's going to be huge. It's really gonna unlock and enable much better user experiences with DeFi, and yeah, I'm excited to finally get hands on with it and be using it. I think, we've talked also about, it's like almost like who's building this, right? Like with the ability or the prospect of being able to like bring your ordinals or your runes onto the Stacks network for easier trading, so you don't have to worry about things like mempool sniping or just the fees that are required, with these transactions. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited for Stacks Nakamoto. Less than a month away now, and that is just incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it's almost here. To your point about SBTC, bringing ordinals and things like anything that you want to trade. Some people want to buy art, collect it, hold it forever. Some people want to flip art. I mean, just like to be honest, that's what a lot of people are here for. Number go up technology. So for the people who want to speculate and not have to pay exorbitant fees, that's something like that. That's what SBTC will solve.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it just if you want to do that activity, that high, high throughput activity, right? Do it on the L2. It makes so much more sense from a fee perspective, from a speed perspective. That's definitely what the industry is kind of moving towards. We've seen it on Ethereum, right? Ethereum is now really optimizing for L2s and scaling on the L2s versus scaling on the L1, and we're seeing a lot of that on Bitcoin now as well.
right. Well, I'll segue to the next thing, and that is related to something we talked about yesterday, which is Silk Road Sats. Some people like to collect Sats, parts of fractions of a Bitcoin that were from the Silk Road days. So, what am I segueing to, Brandon? Take us to our next segment here.
Yeah, that actually reminds me that was one thing that I really resonated with from the Leather Lounge yesterday was, there's a lot of talk about kind of rare sats, right? And like unique sats. I feel like the sats that have a story behind them are more interesting than just like a random uncommon sat from a random block, right? So we have, pizza sats would be kind of the biggest example of that. There's also these Silk Road sats, and these are kind of sats that were traded during these really significant moments in Bitcoin's history, right? Either the first Bitcoin pizza transaction, the first time that Bitcoin was used, to purchase something physical, like a physical good, by Laszlo, and these Silk Road bitcoins, right? Any Bitcoin that was kind of used in or during kind of Silk Road when Silk Road was around.
Hmm.
So the other big thing, kind of, I wanted to sort of just address this FUD because we've been kind of seeing it over the past few weeks, and I wanted to just mention it again. There's been a lot of fear because there's been, as we were talking about earlier, right, with like looking at on-chain data, we know the U.S. government's kind of Bitcoin addresses. We know how much Bitcoin they have. A lot of
Hmm.
that Bitcoin is not Bitcoin that they purchased as part of some reserve, right? In fact, none of it is. It's all been Bitcoin that has been seized in illicit activity, either through hacks or in this case, a lot of Bitcoin was seized from Silk Road. And we saw this week that the U.S. government had transferred over 10,000 Bitcoin from, I don't know, whatever existing kind of wallet or existing service that they were using into Coinbase. And a lot of people were speculating. There was a ton of FUD that was out there, with everyone being afraid that that meant because they were transferring to Coinbase, that meant that they were going to be selling 10,000 Bitcoin, on Coinbase, kind of like we saw with Germany a few weeks ago, with them sort of market selling all of their Bitcoin. And it doesn't seem to be the case. I think this kind of news kind of went past a lot of people, but notably, the U.S. government had signed a deal with Coinbase to custody their assets. So this is just part of them moving Bitcoin to a more solid custodian. Coinbase, as we've talked about with ETFs, custodies a lot of Bitcoin, right? They're pretty much the biggest name in terms of Bitcoin custody through their Coinbase Prime product. Most of the ETFs that are out there are custodied by Coinbase, except for maybe a couple. Like I think Fidelity is one of the bigger ones that is doing their own kind of self custody through their solutions. But yeah, a majority of them are on Coinbase. So this was really just the U.S. government, I guess, getting better about holding their keys, right, and moving it over to Coinbase for kind of better, more easy safekeeping. So just because they moved 10,000 Bitcoin to Coinbase does not mean that they're selling 10,000 Bitcoin. Although it could still happen. It doesn't mean that they're not doing it. But for
Right.
people that maybe jumped to the conclusion that they were immediately going to be selling it, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. Do you know if that was enough to like spook the market and make some movement one way on the downside?
I mean, it does seem that way a little bit, right? When you look at kind of the price, I feel like the price has been a little choppy over the past couple of weeks.
Hmm.
Feels like any news like this really spooks the market and gets people in a fearful kind of state. Bitcoin price has still been kind of weird the past couple of weeks, and this certainly did not help that cause with with Coinbase FUD.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the Bitcoins that Germany sold. You know how the German language, they have this way of combining words, like Schadenfreude
Hmm.
means harm and joy together, or like damage and pleasure together, Schadenfreude. I wonder if some people, it's maybe like a super niche use case and maybe a ridiculous thought experiment that I'm talking about here, but like maybe some people will find value in those sats from Germany and they'll come up with some word about those rare sats that Germany sold off.
Ooh, that's interesting. See that, but that to me, like that is so much more interesting again than like a random uncommon sat on a random block that was mined like 3 months ago, right? Like those types of stories are so much more interesting to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I mean if you're for example just like a German artist and that resonates with you, you can imbue your art with extra meaning because of the significance of the sat that you're inscribing on.
That I feel like we just like created some alpha out of thin air with that. Like I feel like yeah, I'm going to be very interested to almost like we should track that, right? We know their wallets, we know where the Bitcoin went, so we can track that Bitcoin. We can see who's holding it and yeah, I'd love to see some art created on those types of sats. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Okay, I'm typing some German translation into Chat GPT here. So, okay, if people think that selling the Bitcoin was a mistake for Germany, we could translate money mistake to Geldfehler, Fehler.
It's almost like failure, which is interesting.
Geldfehler.
Yeah,
Seth.
like fiat failure.
Hey, nice. I hope
There we
everyone's
go.
listening. Alpha.
Yeah, this is just free alpha that we're giving out, for anybody that wants to run with these ideas. Go right ahead.
All right. What about are we on to BitVM2 versus BitVM1 here?
Yeah, so I feel like this news also kind of went under the radar this week, but this is a really big deal. BitVM was just a huge announcement. I think a lot of people cite BitVM as sort of one of the big projects that kind of kicked off this huge renaissance in all of the new Bitcoin L2s that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is, for those that are not familiar with BitVM, it is essentially it's a almost a discovery, because it's a way to do some form of very kind of basic smart contract activity on the Bitcoin L1 without any changes to the Bitcoin L1 required. When I think about like, it's sort of like a way of doing like binary calculations on Bitcoin. So like very simple, like incredibly simple calculations, but it's all possible and enforceable on Bitcoin today, technically. So huge, it's made huge waves in the space ever since it sort of came out. Robin Linus is the one that sort of originally kind of announced it back in the day, and he posted this week kind of a BitVM2. So it was the BitVM kind of one, I guess now is just originally known as BitVM, was sort of the first iteration of this. And since then, we've seen other builders, that have started to iterate on this idea as well. CatVM is probably one of the more notable ones that the Quantum Cats and the Taproot Wizards are building. So there's been sort of an iterative process there. With BitVM2, kind of does three main things that kind of stuck out to me, that are kind of differences between 1 and 2. In BitVM1, only a fixed set of operators could perform challenges. It was sort of yeah. So you put it there. I'm struggling to recall the different type of ZK proof algorithms that are out there, but it's kind of related to zero knowledge, and the fact that you can it's like, or optimistic roll-ups versus, gosh, this is obviously a live podcast. But basically it's going from only a fixed set of operators that can challenge these things versus opening it up to all users, which makes it kind of a more permissionless and, again, more decentralized type of system. For on-chain transactions, BitVM required up to 70 on-chain transactions to resolve these types of disputes. BitVM2 reduces it to only 3. So again, it just becomes much more cost-effective to do these things. They're working on more optimization with BitVM2 and the security model. So BitVM2 introduces or improves security by reducing the complexity and number of transactions that are needed for, this is the word that I was thinking of, trying to think of, fraud proofs. It makes it harder for dishonest operators to exploit the system. So overall, making it just more efficient, more secure, and more permissionless and decentralized, which are all the things that Bitcoiners can get behind. So definitely some positive improvements there.
I almost filled out my Bitcoin bingo card with with decentralization and trustless, and yeah, so close.
Yeah, I had to really leverage my go back into all of the old articles that we've posted on the Trust Machines
Yeah.
blog and Learn Center to get through all of those terms there.
Well, I do want to do a little bit of self promotion on Leather and Trust Machines part. And when it comes to educational content, the blogs, Learn Center, educational content on YouTube, it really is best of the best. I mean, there's just a super good team of writers all around. So if anyone is looking to, educate themselves, understand more about this ecosystem, because my gosh, it moves fast and there's a lot to understand, and there's always new things. BitVM1 versus 2. Yeah, that's the best starting place for educating yourself.
Yeah, we've been on the Trust Machine side. We've been posting a lot of content lately on all these different Bitcoin layers that are emerging. Of course, there's like over 100 of them, so we have not covered everything yet, but more to come there. We're working on some Twitter threads to kind of go along with that. So if you prefer to have some more bite-sized information on Twitter versus reading a blog post about it, stay tuned. We're kind of preparing a little campaign around that. But yeah, there's definitely so much to keep track of. Fortunately, we have a lot of great writers that work with us to produce a lot of this stuff. But yeah, a lot to keep track of for sure.
Yeah, it really is. What are some of the in your recent memory, some of your favorite threads that you were writing?
Well, I think the one that sticks out to me for this week is we have sort of an ongoing series that we've been doing for Leather on different Bitcoin ordinals collections.
Hmm.
So we did one that we published yesterday on the Bitcoin booze, which were one of the first, kind of one of the first big collections on Bitcoin. They were very early on ordinals, and they've been doing some really cool stuff, specifically with AI. I'll give a shout out to Butoshi. Has built out these really cool things to essentially each boo in the collection has its own personality, and Butoshi has built out essentially a chat bot for each of these boos that you can go on to Discord and you can have conversations with them. Um, that's so cool. Like,
Wow.
it's really neat. So they all have kind of their own individual personalities, and yeah, just some really cool stuff that they're doing with AI specifically. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the sort of like merging of like AI and crypto and Bitcoin is like a buzz topic. That's everyone's trying to figure out how can we combine all these things. And
Hmm.
I don't know. At a lot of times, it just feels like people are just trying to do it for the sake of doing it. But it's really cool to see this is like a real kind of example of this that is actually fun and interesting, and is not just like trying to combine these two concepts together to make money or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's so much of that happening. Just like in the .com phase, everyone was saying like, "Here's our .com, bring us that extra money." With Bitcoin and crypto, last cycle 4 years ago, everyone was like, "All right, we're Web3 now." Um, but then quickly we saw like a lot of wind taken out of the crypto Bitcoin sales, moving over to AI, because that's the new hot thing. And conversely, I guess Bitcoin's like the argument that Bitcoin is bad for the environment because it is so computationally expensive. Like it takes a lot of energy. Like AI is taking that away from Bitcoin right now. So a lot of people are focusing on the compute power for AI. So yeah, it's been fascinating to see that shift, especially as it was happening during the bear market. It was like things getting stacked on top of Bitcoin, and people were like, there were so many bad things, rough things happening in the last bear market, and then the transition to the new darling, the new shiny thing in the room, and that was AI.
Yeah,
Which
it's
you got some
that
people are
infamous tweet, right? Of if you're in crypto, pivot to AI.
yes. Oh wait, what was that? Who said that?
It was Jason. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Calacanis or whatever.
From the All In Pod.
Yes, yeah. That was like, yeah, infamous tweet, right? If you're in crypto, pivot to AI, and I don't know, man. I mean, I guess that's worked out for folks that maybe did that at that time, looking at like Nvidia's stock price. But I don't know. I'm happy to remain in crypto. I'm happy that I didn't follow that advice and stayed here.
There's so much to be built, so much to do.
There certainly is. Well, couple things that we're working on. One, we're working on making this an actual podcast. I yesterday downloaded. I went back into the archives and downloaded every episode that we've done of Good for Bitcoin. This episode, this is actually our 20th episode, which is pretty crazy to think about.
That's huge.
That we've been doing it for so long already.
I know. Let's see. Yesterday was Leather Lounge 16th episode. So finally feel like I might know what I'm doing. Almost.
Yeah, Leather Lounge is catching up to us. We gotta keep it moving here. But yeah, we're so thankful, for everybody that I see some folks that very consistently tune into this show. I see a few folks that we have Kabi down there, we have Beanie, a few other folks there. So thank you guys, for everybody that does tune in. We got Dave in the audience here. Yeah, we're so thankful, for you guys to just be tuning in and listening every week. We really do appreciate it. Always really cool to see kind of some more consistent folks and engage with our audience. And yeah, I'm very, very thankful. And yeah, it's so cool that we've had this going on for so long now. We started this, the first episode of this show was back in March. So, and it was, prior to launching this show in March, we had talked about doing it for so long, and then we finally did it. We did like man, I almost hesitate to even talk about it. We did almost like an episode 0, and just as like a extremely low stakes kind of version of this show. Because I always hesitated for so long with launching it, because I wanted to. I just wanted it to be perfect, right? And you have to kind of let go of that notion of it's not going to be perfect, but you just want to make the best show you can. And yeah, it's just really cool that we've kind of now we've built out that muscle a little bit, and we have a few shows under our belt. And yeah, it's pretty cool to just to reflect on all the different shows that we've done so far.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good alpha shared, a lot of good reflections. So next month we're coming up on it'll be 6 months, right? Any ideas for what you'd like to do for the 6-month mark?
Man, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but I think we're going to have within the next month we're going to be doing a lot more with community, I think. So I'm really excited to kind of be rolling out some initiatives that we've been thinking about there. I think I'm going to leave it at that, because we probably also still need to brainstorm on some more exciting things that we could potentially do. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to keep leaning really hard into community, all the listeners, and just the Stacks ecosystem and the Ordinals ecosystem and the Bitcoin ecosystem in general. There's so much that we can still continue to do. I'd love to potentially also have more like featured guests on the show, when we can, right? To hear kind of directly from some of these builders of things that we talk about on the show, like news wise. It'd be really cool to kind of hear directly from them on some things. So yeah, I guess stay tuned for more of that.
If only we could get Rena on the show to talk about her quote in Cointelegraph. That would be great, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. I think I see Rena down there in the audience, actually. She just joined a minute ago.
Yeah.
Rena, if you want to come up, feel free. But yeah, I'd love to see some more of that. But I'd also love to do also some more just some more like ad hoc shows, right? Whenever we do like certain things, we did one on like BNSV2 a few weeks ago, right? That was sort of outside of
Right.
the regular scheduled show, and we heard again like just like we were talking about, right? We heard directly from the builders, and that was a really interesting and awesome show. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe
we'll definitely do more of those as well.
maybe
I heard
something
my
when
name.
Malcolm
Hey,
and you.
Rena.
All right.
Yeah, we're just kind of reflecting on some of the shows that we did, but we talked about CBBTC earlier on in the show and your feature on Cointelegraph. Do you want to maybe share some of your thoughts on CBBTC?
Yeah, I'm totally happy to. I'm like first and foremost, I'm like excited to see a powerhouse like Coinbase finally coming back to Bitcoin. It's been a long time coming, just seeing exchanges really take a more Bitcoin native approach, or at least a Bitcoin centric approach. This is kind of not new for Coinbase, given they finally integrated Lightning and they have grants and stuff supporting Bitcoin core devs and things like that. So like obviously super thrilled to see kind of the infrastructure that they and the powerhouse that they bring behind it, because Coinbase is known for building things that are easy to use and anyone can kind of have access to it. But what really is hard for me to kind of get behind is something else built via EVM rails. Like I think that kind of defeats the purpose of having a Bitcoin, like a liquid Bitcoin asset that can be used in smart contracts. When I think about taking my Bitcoin out of cold storage and bringing it on chain, I want something that reharnesses kind of the immutability of proof of work or the security architecture of Bitcoin. And fundamentally for me, just like an EVM asset just does not fit the bill. I really very much believe that the more and more on chain activity that we wish to see in the world, it's going to have to fit the ethos of Bitcoin. So that decentralized wrapper is key. That decentralized validator set, signer set, whatever kind of terms people are using is critical. And I don't necessarily need to see a trust me, bro, I'm the biggest custodian kind of in the mix. And so I love that they're kind of getting back towards Bitcoin origins, but I don't think they've gotten back to like Bitcoin ethos of decentralized money is the future.
I
Yeah.
just read cheers from the Bitcoin maxis from 100 miles away.
And it's like I'm not even a Bitcoin maxi. Like I fundamentally believe like L2s are the way to go, but they have to harness or have a economics incentive or tie back to supporting Bitcoin L1. And that's fundamentally where I think most have gotten it wrong. Like, okay, if I bring my Bitcoin to Base, what is the optimism stack doing for Bitcoin? Are we helping miners? Are we supporting more transactions? Are we increasing the security budget or architecture? Fundamentally, we're not in that case. And so it's hard for me to want to support something like that that doesn't add value just to Bitcoin's network and utility.
Yeah, those are all really great points, Rena. I think, to give them a little bit of credit, though, right? We also saw Coinbase this year finally bring out Lightning support on
100%.
Bitcoin. So, they're moving in the right direction for sure. At the end of the day, Coinbase is just a gigantic company, and they have so many different use cases and different users that they're trying to build products for. So yeah, I mean, CBBTC might not be for me. Maybe it's for somebody. I'm sure it's for somebody,
But it's
but
for someone, because you
yeah,
can't deny that they've built the goodwill as an industry OG for making it easy to get your first piece of Bitcoin, to buy it, to get a wallet, to try an on chain quest. Like they have made it easy, and I applaud Coinbase tremendously of taking that direction. I just wish that as they were looking at their kind of L2 thesis, there are some L2s that are really awesome for EVM, but there are maybe some other approaches when it comes to other chains.
Yeah, really great points. And yeah, I mean, hopefully at the end of the day, it'll bring more people into the Bitcoin ecosystem. Maybe they'll be able to bridge over to the L1 and do some L1 stuff. Maybe they'll bridge to an actual Bitcoin L2 and do some Bitcoin L2 stuff, and have that Bitcoin L2 actually, again, to your point, benefit the L1 in some way.
And so Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Rena, what are your thoughts then on something like SBTC as it aims to meet that ethos of decentralization?
I think that's a step in the right direction. Ultimately, what I like about SBTC is one, it's open source. Two, it's built in public. It has been always built in public. The repos are quite public on GitHub and such. But what I love is the idea it's not a federated model, it's a decentralized model, but anybody can become a validator or signer for the network and contribute to the benefits and security of the architecture, which really to me feels like the idea of building a decentralized, like on-chain money for Bitcoin. It eerily reminds me of like DAI, and like that to me has been one of the greatest use cases created in crypto as decentralized money. And so I love the kind of direction that SBTC is taking. I think there's others that are also taking like an interesting direction. I don't know if you guys talked about like FBTC earlier or TBTC. Basically, everyone is trying to re-architect to create their own on-chain Bitcoin asset. Some are taking EVM approaches, some are taking federated approaches, some are taking decentralized approaches. I think the bigger, kind of broader topic at hand or like narrative to draw from that is that people are desiring an on-chain Bitcoin because they want to use their Bitcoin and deploy it, and that's really where all of us are running towards, even if we have different approaches.
Well said.
Well, I think that's potentially a good place to end it. I know we're at the hour. We try to keep these shows, just packed with content, but also respectful of everyone's time, because we know that not everybody has, 4 hours to listen to a Twitter space. So thank you guys again. I know we already gave so many thank yous today on this space, but thank you again for listening. And expect to see this in your podcast app soon, hopefully within the next week or two. We're still kind of crossing T's and dotting I's, but really looking forward to getting this out there. So if you can't listen live, you can still listen when it is convenient for you. So really looking forward to that. And thank you everybody for listening. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Brandon. Thanks Rena.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.